What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Sloppy Saturdays. And today we are going over our top 10 prospects of this year's NFL draft. There's going to definitely be a lot of surprises within the top 10. There's going to be a lot of surprises for you guys on my list. If you guys have been following me over the last 2 to 3 months, maybe there isn't because you guys know my opinions on a lot of these players. Now we are going full-blown draft coverage for you guys, probably over the next month and a half before and after the draft. If you guys haven't been following me, we went over the whole entire combine. We did a mock draft for you guys already. It's not our final mock draft. There's going to be a mock draft coming for you guys, obviously, within the next 9 days. We've done episodes individually on players. We basically went over every single player in this top 10 already. But now I wanted to rank them for you guys, my top 10 NFL draft prospects. A couple of things I do want to go over before we get into this top 10. First off, this isn't necessarily the order I think the top 10 is going to go in. This is just who I think is a top 10 prospect based on how they fare at their position compared with players in the NFL draft from years past. That's what that's about. Not necessarily it's going to be my predicted order 1 to 10. We're also going to go who I think they fit best with team-wise. And another thing I do want to go over, there is no quarterbacks on this list. I know that might be a surprise to you guys. I do not have Fernando Mendoza graded as a top 10 pick. I obviously know he's going number 1 to the Raiders. I've told you guys time and time again, I'm not a fan of Fernando Mendoza being a top 10 pick. I think the Raiders are making a massive mistake. We'll see how that goes. Obviously, they brought in Kirk Cousins. It is expected that Kirk Cousins is going to start at least the beginning of the season, and we'll see how that goes. I actually do like that move, because I do think the Raiders are not the best situation right now, even though they had a pretty good offseason. Again, we all know how they fared last year to get that number 1 pick. I don't think he's going in the right system. But again, going over Fernando Mendoza, you guys heard from me time and time again. I really think Indiana was a powerhouse. He was in a phenomenal system. He obviously had a great year, make all the throws he needed to win the Heisman, to win the national championship. And for the Raiders, that's an easy number 1 pick. Obviously, they need a quarterback. It's a weak quarterback class. Like I said, Heisman, national champion. He's the number 1 overall pick. It's pretty easy for them. And also in the sense for the Raiders as well, we've seen them go veteran after veteran, whether it was Jimmy Garoppolo or Geno Smith. So this is definitely the time for them to take a quarterback. I just don't like how Fernando Mendoza is going to be for the Raiders, how he's going to transit to the NFL. I do think he has pretty good ball placement, but again, he played for a powerhouse. Nothing really stands out for me. I don't like his decision-making post-snap when he doesn't get what he wants. I do feel like he panics a little bit. You only see that throughout times this last season because of how dominant Indiana was. But again, nothing jumps out the page for me. Obviously, his size is really good, but you put him behind a really bad offensive line, I don't think he's going to be able to extend plays that well, especially in the NFL when the game's faster. I don't like him as a mobile quarterback at all. Don't think he has the biggest arm. There's a lot of things that I don't think he warrants a top 10 pick for. But again, it's just that time for the Raiders. They're obviously going to do it. I actually, like I said, I don't mind the Kirk Cousins thing at all because I don't think he should be starting day 1 for the Raiders. And then also, my favorite quarterback in this draft, my number 1 quarterback in this draft that's been turning a lot of heads. I know it isn't as big of a take as it was when I was saying it 3-4 months ago because a lot of other people really like this guy now coming into this NFL draft, is Ty Simpson. Ty Simpson, very similar draft position as Jackson Dart last year, in my opinion. Jackson Dart went 25. We had the same type of opinion on Jackson Dart. There was, again, coming out to the draft, everybody thought Shedeur Sanders was going to go ahead of him. Obviously, everybody knew Cam Moore was going to go ahead of him. But I was saying Jackson Dart was the best quarterback in that draft. And I think Ty Simpson is going to go in a similar range as him. Ty Simpson, I think, is a really good quarterback. I think he's going to be perfect if he goes into the right situation because I think he has the ability to extend plays. I think he made more impressive throws when you break down the tape than Fernando Mendoza. When you look at the anticipation, when you look at throwing guys open, he reminds me a lot of Brock Purdy. He has straight line speed and he has the ability to extend plays. And like I said, his accuracy and anticipation. I know that's not the sexiest comparison, but for a lot of these teams that don't have a quarterback, you would be pretty happy with Brock Purdy. I think Brock Purdy is a pretty good NFL quarterback. Again, I know it's not on Mahomes, Josh Allen comparison, but I really think it's a fair comparison. That's what he reminds me of. And again, like I said, when you break down Alabama and his season, it was just rocky in the sense of we know the weight he lost. He wasn't healthy throughout the season. You saw his play start to tail off when he was losing that weight. And then also at the same time, I know Alabama has a first-round pick in Caden Proctor on the offensive line. That offensive line, though, as a whole was extremely inconsistent. And then when you look at the running game for Alabama, between Hill and Miller, like they could not get anything going on the run game at all. I do not think, even though he plays for the Alabama Crimson Tide, that was a perfect situation by any means. But again, I think when you break down his best tape and what's going to translate to the NFL, I like him translating to the NFL a little bit better than Fernando Mendoza. He obviously doesn't make the top 10. I just don't think a quarterback is warranted of a top 10 pick. I really like Ty Simpson if he goes between that 20 and 30 range. I think that's a perfect spot. Obviously, people a couple months ago predicted him to go in the second round. Very similar to Jackson Dart last year. Like I said, the trajectory, he's probably going to even go a lot higher than we think. He may be going 15 to 20. Some teams I like for Ty Simpson, I like teams where he could sit down for a year and develop, and he could go into a pretty solid organization. I don't want this guy to be rushed. I like the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers, again, you're looking at a pretty notable, really good organization. They have Aaron Rodgers for a year. Aaron Rodgers may be more open to mentoring him because he knows it's going to be his last year. He goes into a Steelers organization that's pretty good. I like that. Also, we've decided it every single year. It never happens, but eventually one day it will. I did like the Rams as a pick as well. I think that could be very interesting, depending on if they have to move up, move back. But I think the Rams could be very interesting. Him learning behind Stafford, him obviously going to arguably the best play caller in McVay. That's a dream situation for anybody. But like I said, I like a situation where he could sit, learn behind somebody, and maybe like redshirt an NFL year in a sense, and go into year two. And I like that a lot. Again, if you guys want more, I have, like I said, dedicated videos on Fernando Mendoza, on Ty Simpson. But like I said, summing that up, this is a weak quarterback class. I don't think anybody's warranted of a top 10 pick. I would use my pick if I had a quarterback on Ty Simpson. I know a lot of people love Fernando Mendoza. I know obviously Fernando Mendoza is going number one. I'm not like living under a rock. I just don't believe he's going to be a really good NFL quarterback. Now we get into our top 10 NFL draft prospects. Coming in at number 10, we have Jordan Tyson. Now, Jordan Tyson is a very interesting case to me because Jordan Tyson comes in as our third receiver in this NFL draft. But if everything goes right, I feel like he has the highest upside out of all his receivers. Out of any receiver in this class, I am more confident in him on the outside and the inside. I do think he has really good breakaway speed. I think he has better speed than the people in front of him. I think his height's really good at 6'2". One of the biggest glaring concerns coming into this year was he missed a lot of easy drops the prior year. I feel like he did shore that up as well. So you guys must be saying, if he has the highest upside in the draft and you really like him, why is he your third receiver? It's just the injury concerns for me. Now, again, we've seen this go both ways with players in the NFL. We've seen people that have been injured year after year in college football. They come into the NFL and they are fully healthy. I think if that were the case, we could very well see a scenario where Jordan Tyson comes out as the best receiver in this draft. But again, I don't like the body of his work as much as the people in front of him because you look at last year, him, Sam Levitt were injured. It was a wash. Then you look at the year before that, Arizona State made a pretty big run. Obviously, we know Sam Levitt and Scadaboo, they had a great run, almost knocked off Texas in the college football playoffs. But again, he wasn't there for their biggest game. Like, I am very concerned with Jordan Tyson's injury concerns, but I do think as a prospect, when you look at 6'2", the ability to play all three wide receiver spots, even maybe he even lines up in the backfield if people get creative for a player or two. He's explosive. He could go for deep balls. He could go for contested catches at 6'2". He really does not have any weaknesses in his game. And like I said, the drop concerns in the first half of last year, I feel like he really shored it up as well. I love Jordan Tyson. I said it time and time again with the three receivers in this class, and we're obviously going to go over the two in front of him. I think the person who wins out at wide receiver, who selects a receiver, is the person who gets the last receiver. I feel like we're splitting hairs with all these receivers. I know their skill sets are a little different, but I am pretty confident in all three receivers. I know when you compare it to other years, when you look at the top receiver, you may not think as highly as them as the top receivers in other classes. I think all of them are going to be really good NFL players. And like I said, I think you're splitting hairs between all of them. Where I see Jordan Tyson fit in, very oddly, maybe not oddly because they got a guy in Chris Olave, but I really like the Saints. I think the Saints are very interested in him. And the thing with the Saints, in my opinion, is you got Tyler Shuck last year. I was not high on Tyler Shuck. Tyler Shuck showed that he could be a franchise quarterback for you guys, that he could be the future. I think if you had Jordan Tyson as offense, maybe accelerate his progression. When you look at, you pair Jordan Tyson up On the opposite side, you have Chris Olave. Then you also look at the backfield. You add an ETN. Maybe Kamara stays as well. I know Kamara is a sticky situation bringing in ETN, but you're looking at a pretty good offense for Tyler Shough to progress. I thought the Saints in the back half of the year looked really good under Tyler Shough. I think adding to that offense would be really good. I know Washington could be interested in receiver as well. Obviously, they have Terry, but who knows what's going on with Debo. Washington could be an interesting spot. It's going to be very interesting because I feel like for me, it's going to depend on where Cardinal Tate goes. And then teams that were interested in receiver when Cardinal Tate is off the board, that's where we could go. So, I mean, you could be looking at the Browns as well. The Browns definitely need another playmaker in their offense for sure. I like some of the guys in their offense, Judkins, Fannin Jr. I still like Jerry Jeudy, but they definitely need that number one receiver. They could go that because their defense is absolutely loaded. I expect the Browns to go offense as well. So there's a lot of places Jordan Tyson could go. I do think he could go in the top 10, top 12 for sure. But again, Jordan Tyson, my really concern is the injuries. I feel like for body of work, when you see staying on the field, these next couple of receivers, I think you're a little more secure if you get these other receivers. The next guy we have coming up, we're actually going back-to-back receivers. I have Makai Lemon. Makai Lemon is a guy I absolutely love. Makai Lemon is a guy that, like, I don't know what is stopping me. I really want to put him as my number one receiver in this draft. I am not. I'm still going to have Cardinal Tate over him. Spoiler alert. But Makai Lemon is a guy last year that won the Biletnikoff Award for the best receiver in college football over a generational guy in Jeremiah Smith. Makai Lemon, out of anybody in this list on offense, I feel like he had more of a workload on his offense than anywhere else. Makai Lemon, the biggest thing I love about Makai Lemon is just flat out his ability to get open. I feel like the NFL is a changing game, especially at the receiver position, because when we look at years past, you're looking at the biggest receiver, the fastest receiver. That's what you're looking at, those intangibles. Now it came more to a game where you're looking at the guys that could consistently get open, whether it's their quickness off the line or their separation, their route running. Makai Lemon is a guy that I think you could argue he's the best route runner in this entire class. I do think his quickness in the slot, he's just completely unguardable. What I absolutely love about Makai Lemon that I think differentiates him than anybody else in this class is how consistently he was involved at USC. When you look at Makai Lemon, 7+ receptions in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games. This means this guy was constantly involved and he cannot be guarded. What I also love about Makai Lemon, first off, he reminds me a lot of JSN and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like I said, two guys that aren't the biggest, aren't the fastest, but consistently get open. And when you look at that, I think he has probably the highest floor out of anybody in this draft class at the receiver position. Like I said, when you have the ability to get separation with your route running and your routes are flawless, that's something that just translates to the NFL. The other thing I am very hopeful for Makai Lemon, and it's something that we had to see from Amon-Ra St. Brown and JSN as well. When you look at a guy that's 5'11", I feel like the biggest question is, can he move on the outside? Because a lot of times NFLs like to use their weaker receivers in the slot. Obviously, you have more space to run routes in the slot. Can he be able to play on the outside and move around a little bit? I 100% think he could. I think we saw that from JSN this year. Him having the ability to play on the outside is what made him arguably the best receiver in the league this year. I think Makai Lemon could do a lot of the same. I think the biggest thing when you look at small receivers, the ability to play on the outside, it isn't necessarily their speed because, like I said, Makai Lemon is not the fastest guy. That has been straying people away. I feel like the thing that makes them able to train on the outside, obviously, it's the route running, but also it's the ability to play bigger than you are. I feel like Makai Lemon plays a lot bigger than he is, and that's something that I really like for him to really translate into an Amon-Ra St. Brown or a JSN. Absolutely love Makai Lemon. I think he was by far the best player on this USC team. I think when you look at some of the best receivers in the league nowadays, like I said, between an Amon-Ra St. Brown, a JSN, these guys are not the biggest, not the fastest, but they get open better than anybody. That's what I see Makai Lemon being. Makai Lemon, I feel like, is a guy a lot of people are sleeping on. Like, I honestly predict Jordan Tyson to go ahead of him, even though I have him a spot lower. And then I predict Cardinal Tate to go, again, over him. But where do I see him going? Honestly, I could see the Jets at 16. I could see the Ravens at 14, I believe they're picking. The thing I don't like about the Ravens is you're pairing up two smaller receivers. Like, if you have a Makai Lemon, I do like a bigger body receiver. And him and Zay Flowers, you are just kind of small all around there. But again, Ravens need a receiver. I could see that. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes in the top 10, maybe the Chiefs at 9. I love him to the Chiefs. The reason why I love him to the Chiefs is because I feel like the Chiefs been going, again, a lot of these field stretcher receivers over the last, basically over the Patrick Mahomes era the last 8 years. But I feel like Mekhi Lemon would bring somebody with like precise route running, precise separation. I think he'd be a great fit for them as well. And I think that's the direction they could definitely go. And we're going to talk about them possibly still being in the Jeremiah Love mix. But the fact that they went Kenneth Walker, they could go somewhere else on offense. I think he would definitely bring something very different to that room when you look at Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, two different type receivers. That would be interesting to me as well. But Mekhi Lemon is a guy that I think he could be the best receiver in this draft for sure. I think anybody in the top 3 could really be the best receiver in this draft. And I think when you look at the pathway for Mekhi Lemon, like I said, how much the NFL has changed it, how much it isn't about the biggest receiver, the fastest receiver, but more of the guy that could get open. The way you could scheme Mekhi Lemon, like I said, I think he will have the ability, maybe not his first year, but within his first 3 years to play all 3 receiver spots and then to possibly even line up in the backfield in certain plays. Like we saw every time JSN lined up in the backfield, he was wide open. I understand that was in the Kubiak calling, but I think Mekhi Lemon, I think somebody is going to get a steal because I feel like he's going to go lower than expected. So that wraps up Mekhi Lemon. Now we are at number 8. We are going to go with Sonny Styles. Now, a lot of people might be saying, why do you have Sonny Styles so low? I think a lot of people are getting a little too hyped with Sonny Styles over the NFL Combine. We have a dedicated video on Sonny Styles going over his NFL Combine. My issue with Sonny Styles is we look at these guys with these freak athleticism and their upside, and we have talked about this continuously over the last couple of months. These guys that could do it all, these guys that played different positions all 3 years in college football, how are you going to translate in the NFL? It is so hard to translate in the NFL at one singular position. If you're not getting consistent reps at one position, I understand you could sprinkle in maybe another position or another skill set, but I don't want Sonny Styles to be a guy that, again, his freak athleticism leaves a defensive coordinator not knowing how to use him, trying to use him in all different spots, and he's not getting consistent work in one spot. I don't think he's going to develop that way. The other problem with Sonny Styles, in my opinion, he's an off-ball linebacker. That position is not that valuable when you look at within the top 10. I understand with Sonny Styles' size, his speed, you're looking at a guy that could potentially one day guard any position on offense in the NFL, whether it's a tight end, running back, even a receiver. That's why I think Sonny Styles is so valuable to some people. But again, you're looking at a guy as underclassman. He came in as a safety. Then when Caleb Downs came in, he had to transfer to linebacker. I think he's best suited as an off-ball linebacker. But then we saw in 2024 him come in as more of a blitzing linebacker. So you're looking at a guy that really played all over the place, and there's no blueprint on really how to use him. That scares me a little bit for an NFL team. Like, if he goes into the right setting where there are really good defensive pieces around him, and he could be moved all over the place a little bit because there is stability on that defense, maybe it could work. But again, I do think you have to get consistent reps at one position. My biggest thing with Sonny Styles is that he should come in as an off-ball linebacker consistently if you want to move him around a little bit. The other issue with Sonny Styles, he isn't even a linebacker that can move around to edge as well. We see his highest sack season was 6 in 2024. We know he's blitzing a little bit more. But this isn't a guy that's going to be an edge rusher. This is a guy that you think is going to transcend the game in the sense of he could cover any single position for you on the field, which could be extremely valuable. But he has to stick as an off-ball linebacker. Where I see Sonny Styles going, I see him really going. I kind of see the Cowboys moving up for him. I know the Cowboys have extreme interest in him. And I don't even really like that spot, to be honest. That's just the rumor I've been hearing. Like I said, I feel like Sonny Styles is best going to be suited because a lot of these players where you want it to be a little bit of an unknown of what they're doing on each play, has to have stability on that defense. I feel like if you're looking at a guy to be the savior of your defense, like Dallas might be doing, I know the defense got better with some of the moves they made midway through the season, but I don't know if that's going to be the best for his development, but I know they're pretty interested in him. I could see them moving up to him. Where else could I see? The Giants are interested in him. I don't not really like that pick at all. I think the Giants should stay in the realm of Cardinal Tate, Caleb Downs, Jeremiah Love. I think that's where the Giants stay. I think that would be a little too rich for Sonny Styles, top 5. Then when you're looking at defenses, like, I guess I could see Washington. Washington is a team that could go on either side of the ball. Maybe Washington go with him. Sonny Styles is kind of in that position where it's a little weird. I don't know where exactly he's going to go. If he goes to the Giants, I will be very, very upset, though. I think Giants should stick with, like I said, those three players that I mentioned. Sonny Styles, obviously, with his athletic ability, like we said, he has the size and speed of Calvin Johnson. We broke it down all for you guys in another episode. It is very enticing to pick him, but for an off-ball linebacker that cannot play the edge and has played a little bit all over the place at Ohio State, I'm a little nervous on how he's going to translate to the NFL. He's not a guy I would pick in the top 5, but after that, I do think all on board for Sonny Styles for sure. Now we get into number 7. Number 7, we have Ruben Bain. Ruben Bain is a guy that I feel like really draft stock has plummeted. When we look at Ruben Bain in the middle of college football season, we were looking at a guy that was going to be a top 3 pick, possibly even higher. But a lot of things have been working against Ruben Bain. The major thing that has been working against Ruben Bain is his reckless driving case. Apparently, he was in a car crash where there was a huge fatality in that crash. He never came away with any criminal charges, but it's definitely a thing that we've seen in years past that could drop a player. We've seen it recently with Jalen Carter. We've seen it with why am I blanking? We've seen it with James Pierce as well. Character concerns could really drop a player. I think this could happen to Ruben Bain as well. The other thing that's been working against Ruben Bain is the short hands thing, the short arm length. I do that to limit him in some plays, but I do really think Ruben Bain is going to be a really good player. I don't think there is that much of a gap between him and David Bailey, and I do think he plays one of the premier positions you could be drafting him within the top 5, top 10. We talk about it all the time. If you're a struggling team, you want either that signal caller or you want the guy to rush the signal caller. I think Ruben Bain's body of work is absolutely phenomenal. When you look at 2023, 2024, 2025, I think he was really one of the best players on Miami's defense all 3 years. I do think he stayed at that one position, crushed that one position. And when you look at, again, especially his performances in the college football playoffs, Miami made the national championship. You could argue he was the best player on that team. I think there isn't much really development that has to go on with Ruben Bain for a defensive coordinator. He's a guy you're going to stick on the edge. I do think he's going to be an above-average player in the NFL right away. That's why I personally like him a lot more than Sonny Styles. You're getting the guy at the premier position, a guy that's body of work that's been the same at that position for 3 years, one of the most valuable positions. I kind of think whoever gets Ruben Bain at this point is going to be a steal because I don't see him going within the top 5, even though for 75% of the college football season last year, he was a top 5 pick. He's not going to go that now with all the stuff I said working against him. I really like Ruben Bain. Plays a premier position. We saw it translate for Miami. They made a national championship. I think Ruben Bain is going to be a really good player. Who I think is going to select him? I could see Washington, like I said, at 7. I don't see the Giants going for him, Browns going for him. So that leaves, again, Washington. And then I could really see the Bengals as well. I think if the Bengals land Ruben Bain, it could really be scary because you're looking at a defense that definitely needs to help. I think Shamar Stewart last year kind of was a little bit of a botch pick. If they could add an edge rusher that could change life for them, you could see the Bengals be a playoff team for sure. Obviously, we know we have no questions with their offense. Just, again, if Joe Burrow could stay on the field. But they definitely need help on the defense, getting a premier position. I think it would be a home run if he's laying there at 10 for the Bengals. And I don't think the Bengals will pass that up. Now we are getting into number 6. We're going with Cardinal Tate. Cardinal Tate gets very interesting. I could see Cardinal Tate going on the board as early as 4 to the Tennessee Titans, which I would not mind if you pair him up with Cam Ward. Cam Ward absolutely had no shot last year. It was impossible to evaluate him. I still hope that Cam Ward could be a franchise quarterback and above average quarterback, and I do think he needs some help on the offensive end. They could definitely go with Cardinal Tate at 4. I think, like I said, he could go to the Giants at 5. Obviously, with Wan'Dale Robinson leaving them, they did bring in Moody. They do have Darius Slayton. Obviously, Neighbors come back. Neighbors is a guy with top 5 receiver in the league upside. But to pair somebody else alongside of him, I think that would be really great. And then also the Browns at 6. I think if he makes it to the Browns at 6, he's going to the Browns at 6. The Browns need next. What I really love about Cardinal Tate, why he comes in as my number 1 receiver, first off, it's obviously where he comes from, Ohio State. We've seen Ohio State first-round invitational every single year for receivers. But a lot of people have the, concern that he was opposite of Jeremiah Smith and his stats weren't absolutely insane. We're looking at 875 yards, 9 touchdowns. I think Cardinal Tate is the most polished receiver, especially, again, like I said, with his body of work included, the most polished receiver in the NFL draft. I really like his ability to be able to stay on the outside. I think that's so significant for a team drafting because, like I said earlier with Mekhi Lemon, a lot of people want to use their weaker receivers in the slot, and I think having Cardinal Tate having the ability to stay on the outside that consistently can get open on the outside. We've seen it at Ohio State. Obviously, it was opposite of Jeremiah Smith, but we really saw Brandon Inniss take a lot of slot work. This guy is an X receiver. I think his route running at 6'3" is great. I think he has the best size in the draft. Very underrated for Cardinal Tate, also, in my opinion. His contested-catch ability. I feel like when you go off metrics and then you also go off of what you saw from the eye test, I think he's the best contested-catch receiver in his entire draft. Again, when you look at Cardinal Tate, everything considered, body of work, size, the ability to stay on the outside and consistently get open with his route running, he is the number one guy. He is the number one guy. As much as I want to put Mekhi Lemon over him, like I said, he's the number one guy. The only concern I really have with Cardinal Tate, it's not a concern, but it's just a weakness, I guess you could say. After the catch, I don't really see too much yards after the catch, too much explosive ability. And obviously, we saw what he ran at his 40 wasn't extremely impressive. But again, a guy that I think is going to predominantly play on the outside, could play in the slot if he needs to as well. He's going to be open in the slot. I really like Cardinal Tate. I really see him going to the Giants, and I could see Titans as well. That's what I really see. I don't see him making it to the Browns, but if he does go to the Browns, I think that's a phenomenal ad for them. Now at number 5, we're going with Francis Mauigoa. Francis Mauigoa, I think, is by far the best offensive lineman in this draft. I do think the next best tackle is Spencer Fano. That didn't quite make his list. But Francis Mauigoa, what he was able to do for this Miami offensive line, the time that he was able to get Carson back and to be able to be a tackle, I really love that in the top 5. He said he's willing to play guard. I don't think you put him at guard. What I really love for Francis Mauigoa, and the only spot I see him going for some reason, is the Cardinals. I do think he goes opposite of Paris Johnson Jr., and I do think it's a really good fit for them in the sense of you really shore up this offense for the next quarterback you bring in. You have a really good offensive line if you add him to it, and you have pretty good weapons. Obviously, Michael Wilson really came onto the scene last year, and Marvin Harrison Jr. I still have hope for at one point. I mean, this guy was, as a receiver prospect, he was that guy. I still think he could be really good. And then you have the best tight end in football in Trey McBride. I do think the next quarterback that steps in for them would be going in a pretty good situation. You shore up your offensive line. I don't really like them going any other way because, again, I have hope for the defense somewhat. And then at the same time, I wouldn't want them to go running back because you don't even have your quarterback yet, and the running back usually explodes in their top 2 years. I think Francis Mauigoa is a great pick for them. And like I said, what do you have to endure in the college football playoffs? I thought in the national championship, Miami played a better game in the trenches than Indiana, but Indiana found a way to win. Again, that just speaks to they were the team of destiny. But then you look at the Ohio State game, thought he played really well there. I mean, you're looking at him facing these like top defenses. Feel like he answered the bell every single time. And to be able to be a tackle, I think that's worthy of a top 5 pick. I know, like you guys heard my gripe last year with this. I don't like offensive guards being in the top 10, but I feel like a tackle is valuable enough, especially if you are elite like Francis Mauigoa, to be in the top 5. Like I said, I really only see Cardinals. If he goes past the Cardinals, I honestly don't know where he's going to go, to be honest. I would say Browns would be the next spot up, but who knows? If this guy goes past 3, maybe Giants too. Then we get into David Bailey, Ivor Reese. They come in at 4 and 3 for me. These are 2 guys that I really just went over for the Jets pick. Obviously, they are both rumored to the Jets. 2 very different guys. David Bailey, I believe, is that plug-and-play edge rusher at a premier position. We talked about Ruben Bain, how valuable that position is. David Bailey is a guy where I feel like there is absolutely no risk for him. Not really much of a development plan either. He's a guy that's going to be a day 1 above average starter. He's a guy that can rush the passer. What I absolutely love about David Bailey is how much his production translates. We look at him going to this Texas Tech team where Texas Tech wasn't as good the year previous as they were then. We look at him with a ridiculous season at 14.5 sacks. That means he was getting over a sack a game, which is insane. David Bailey also, not the biggest, not the fastest, but I believe his technique is really going to get him separation off the line. He's a guy that could definitely get to the quarterback, obviously with his statistical season. His production transit, like I said. The other thing I really like about David Bailey, pretty underrated, not something a lot of people are talking about, his ability to also play on the inside on his defensive line. When he lines up at defensive tackle, I believe he's a complete run stopper. So when you look at a guy on the edge that could get to the quarterback, and you look at a guy that could play on the inside as well. And then again, he's not a guy that's super versatile, so you're not risking a lot in development. He plays that premier position. David Bailey, phenomenal. If he doesn't go to the Jets at 2, I really see him going to the Titans at 4. I feel like that's something Robert Saleh just can't pass up as a defensive coordinator. But I do think he should definitely be a top 4 pick. If he goes anywhere past that, somebody's getting a steal for sure. Then at number 3, we are getting into Alvaro Reese. Alvaro Reese, a little more of a risk than David Bailey, but I do have him as a higher prospect just because of everything that he can do on a football field. Sideline to sideline, this guy is extremely fast. Not only that, I do think he has the ability to shut down elite tight ends in the NFL as an off-ball linebacker. I feel like he crushes that position. Then when you also look at Alvaro Reese's ability to possibly progress as an edge rusher, I do think is good as well. The problem with Alvaro Reese is you have to have a certain plan for him to really hit his ceiling. You have to have the right plan in place for him to hit the ceiling and the right guys around him. NFL, like I said in a previous episode with Alvaro Reese, it came to a game now where it's in your front 7, you want to have guys with the ability where you don't know as an offense if they're going to rush or drop back in coverage. Alvaro Reese is that perfect guy. Like I said, him crushing the off-ball linebacker position, but having the ability to also rush the passer as well. He could set the edge. He could walk up to the edge on 3rd and 4th down. That leaves a defense with a very big unknown what Alvaro Reese is going to do on that play. But like I said, it's the situation, it's the development plan that makes him a little more risky. I think Alvaro Reese is definitely going to go number 2 to the Jets, even though right now he technically is at plus odds to do so, and David Bailey is the favorite. I don't think the Jets could pass up on an Alvaro Reese. I do think he's that versatile where you're looking at a Micah Parsons light and a guy who's going to translate perfectly to what the NFL wants to do on the defensive side of the ball. But if the Jets go David Bailey, I do understand it as well. I mean, this is a guy that plays a premier position, a guy that crushes position at Stanford and at Texas Tech. And again, there isn't much risk in development where, again, we know the Jets haven't been great at developing players, and Alvaro Reese is a little more risk. But I do think, like I said, the main thing with Alvaro Reese, where the NFL is going on defense, you want guys where you don't know if they are dropping back in coverage or if they are rushing the passer. And for a guy like Alvaro Reese that you could really do both with, that's what makes him, again, the number 3 player on my list. At number 2, we have Jeremiah Love. Jeremiah Love is a freak. Jeremiah Love, I believe, if you are one of those teams that you could see a big jump going into this year from where you were last year, select Jeremiah Love. Jeremiah Love has the ability, very similar to an Ezekiel Elliott, Saquon Barkley, Todd Gurley, to be one of the best players in the entirety of the NFL in his first 2 years. Jeremiah Love, he doesn't have a weakness. I feel like a lot of people aren't maybe as hype as they should be on Jeremiah Love just because they had a running back in their offense as well. That's probably going to be the second running back taken in this NFL draft. And the way they used him, they didn't just overuse him with carries. But I think that's a plus, honestly. When you look at Ashton Jett the year prior, guy that had 374 carries, Jeremiah Love had 199 carries. That's only going to make him a lot fresher in the NFL. And I do think as a pass catcher, extremely underrated as well. He's a guy that could walk up and play in the slot as a pass catcher. He has great hands. He talked about how one day he could see himself translate into an NFL receiver, which I do not think is going to happen. But that's how good of a pass catcher he is. Then when you look at a running back, he's a guy that can run between the tackles. He's big enough to do that. He's also fast enough to be a threat on the outside as well. I think Jeremiah Love is a complete back, a guy that if you're a team on the brink, he could definitely put you in playoff position. And if you're a team that has a quarterback developing, he's a guy that could accelerate your quarterback's development as well. That's why, little foreshadowing a bit, I could see him going to the Titans at 4. Wouldn't mind that at all. Like we said, Cam Ward had virtually no shot last year. You put a guy that could be an elite back year 1 behind Cam Ward, it's going to only further his development. I also really like the Giants at 5 as well. My number 1 player in this class is the guy I really want going to the Giants. But if Jeremiah Love went to the Giants, I would love that because I do think the Giants could be a surprise team. Obviously, Jackson Dart's a developing quarterback. And I also think for the Giants, as fun as Cam Scatterboo is, he's a good NFL player. He's not an NFL lead back that you were given 3-4 years of your future towards. I do think they have the ability to go running back. Giants would be super fun as well. I know the Cardinals have interest. I really don't like the Cardinals because for me personally, you're kind of throwing away Jeremiah Love year one if he's going to the Cardinals because he's not helping develop your quarterback, and this isn't going to be a playoff team as well. So I kind of don't like Jeremiah Love there. I think it's a little too rich, but Jeremiah Love could basically go at any pick because he's that good. After, one or two, the Jeremiah Love sweepstakes is going to go on. Also, the craziest thing about Jeremiah Love that I did want to dive into for a quick second, somehow the Chiefs are still in at Jeremiah Love at 9, which is insane because they signed Kenneth Walker. That was their big offseason move. Why I thought they signed Kenneth Walker? Because I think they thought that there was absolutely no chance that Jeremiah Love was going to be there at 9. But if he's on the board at 9, they seem to still be willing in Jeremiah Love. Like I said, that great of a player that he is, and the ways you could use him on the field, you could use him with another running back. He's that versatile. Chiefs really want to make a jump after last year. Again, not making the playoffs with Patrick Mahomes, obviously one of the greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen. They want to get this back going on track. Jeremiah Love could be that guy for them as well. I don't necessarily hate it. I just don't think he's going to be there by any means. But again, Jeremiah Love, I like him a lot better than Ashley Gentry last year. I think he's a lot more versatile. I think he's more explosive. I think his ability to catch the football is a lot better as well as a guy that could be, perfect for the modern day NFL. Very similar to Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson. A guy that could really run in between the tackles, has explosive speed, could catch the football. I can't glaze anymore. Jeremiah Love comes in my number 2 prospect, a guy that I really wanted to put at number 1. But at number 1, may turn some heads. I thought he was arguably the best player in college football the last 2 years. When we look at an historic Ohio State defense, I think he was the best player. And Ohio State defense that's going to have, whether it's him, Averill Reese, Sonny Styles, there's going to be multiple guys drafted in the first round on Ohio State defense. I believe Caleb Downs was the best. I feel like the stigma with Caleb Downs is him playing that safety position. A lot of people are saying safeties aren't as valuable as other positions, which is true in the most sense. But when you have a game changer like Caleb Downs that could be the best player on your defense, that could be wearing a Hall of Fame jacket one day, Caleb Downs is the guy. Believe me, he's the number 1 player in this class. Is he going to go number 1? No. Should I think he go number 1? No, because again, there are more valuable positions. That's just a fact. But he should be within the top 5. I absolutely love him to the Giants. I know the Giants had secondary struggles over the last couple of years. I think if he goes to the Giants, he could change life there. Like I said, I do think the Giants should stay within Jeremiah Love, Cardinal Tate, and why am I drawing a blank? Jeremiah Love, Cardinal Tate, and then, obviously Caleb Downs. Those are the 3 I did the Giants should stay in, but I did Caleb Downs be there for the Giants. They should select him. If he somehow gets down to Washington, Bengals, absolute home run. Like I said, best player in the draft. And what I think people just aren't recognizing, when we look at Kyle Hamilton, what he did for the Baltimore Ravens, that was a guy I absolutely loved. He went lower than expected for me in his draft. And then when you look at Nick Emmanwori this year, on the Super Bowl best defense, Seattle Seahawks, his ability to move all over the field as well went lower than expected, and I absolutely loved him last year. You guys go back to my videos last year. So if you get Caleb Downs in the right defense, a guy that could do it all, especially, like I said, a team like the Giants that has a really good front 7, Caleb Downs could be that joker in the defense where you don't know what he's doing. He could do everything. He's a guy that could see stuff breaking down for you and really make up for it when it happens. He's a guy that could come on the line. He's a really good tackler, blitzer. You could use him in a variety of different ways. Caleb Downs is my pick with the highest floor in this NFL draft for a guy that could possibly be a Hall of Famer one day. This is not a guy I would pass up. And I know there was injury concerns. We went over that video. I think that's completely bogus. I think it was teams trying to make Caleb Downs slide down, teams that didn't think that he would be there at their pick. Caleb Downs is the number 1 player in this draft for me. Number 1 player in this draft. If it somehow go past the Giants at 5, it's all game for Caleb Downs. Caleb Downs is the man. Best player on the Ohio State defense that was absolutely historic last season and won the national championship the year before. You can't mess with him. That wraps this episode of Sloppy Saturdays. Really drop down your thoughts below on what you think on my top 10 NFL draft prospects, what you would change. Are you surprised there's not a quarterback in here? I am personally not. I don't think any quarterback in this draft is born of a top 10 pick. Obviously, it's going to happen. What receiver also do you think is the best receiver in this class? I think all these receivers are splitting hairs. That's another thing I really want to hear from you guys. Ruben Bain, is he going to drop further than expected? A guy that plays a premier position, guy that crushed it all 3 years at Miami. A lot of things I really want to hear you guys' takes on. That wraps up this episode of Sloppy Saturdays. Like I said, stay tuned. We're going to completely kill the NFL draft this whole month. We're going to go over every single round, a lot of stuff pre-draft, a lot of stuff post-draft, maybe some stuff during draft as well. Like I said, that wraps this episode on my top 10 NFL draft prospects, and we are out.